Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third in the series of the 3 gears of digital marketing. Super excited to have with me a good friend of ours, MC Carter, again for our third and final in the series. MC, great to have you again.
Wonderful to be back with you, Nick, and hello again, everyone.
So while we're waiting for everyone to come on live, for anyone listening to this after in the recording, we're going to be talking about today the third gear, which is Cadence. So we're going to be talking about the 3 gears of digital marketing. MC, we've already covered strategy, we've already covered presence, and now we're getting into Cadence. So tell us what Cadence is. What is the third gear of digital marketing, which is Cadence?
Yeah, I'll explain that with a story because cadence is an unusual word. And in fact, internally, when we were coming up with the model of the 3 gears of digital marketing with strategy, presence, cadence, a couple of our team members going, MC, cadence, people just don't know what that word is. And I said, well, we'll explain it. And here's how I first discovered it. I'm not much of a cyclist. I love cycling for commuting, getting from A to B, commuting to work, etc. But one of my mates is a really great cyclist, long distance competitive. And I went riding with him one morning. And on the very first hill, it's pitch black, very early. I'm struggling to get up the hill. And he circled back. Carl, his name is. He came back. He circled back. And he goes, oh, no, you've got to keep your cadence consistent. And I said, yeah, no worries. What's cadence? And he said, the deal when you're cycling is you want to keep the same revs, the same revolutions per minute, depending how good a cyclist you are. It might be 60. Really good people are 80, 90. And he said, the key is you change your gears. You never change your cadence, because if you don't change your gears, you'll get a lactic acid buildup. I was out of the saddle trying to get up the hill, pushing all my weight down. He said, no, you don't do that. You drop the gear right down and you keep the cadence steady. Easy lesson to learn, cycling. And that stayed with me as a metaphor with marketing, right? Because one of the most important things is consistency with digital marketing for so many reasons. The human reason of just staying in front of people, but also the Google SEO reason to actually maintain your presence that we spoke about in the second gear. If you don't have a good consistent cadence, you're really wasting your marketing efforts.
I love your example of actually triathlon training, and a good friend of mine from Teach It Forward, Trent, he's a business coach or accountant. Yeah, he was talking to me last week because he was a cyclist back in his day, and he said to me, he goes, Nick, ask your coach about cadence. And he explained exactly what you did pretty much, but and probably we spoke about for about 15 minutes. And it's so true. It's that regular, I suppose, the consistency, which is the key. So we've obviously spoken about marketing strategy in the first session. We spoke about presence. Where do you see accountants going wrong with the cadence aspect of their marketing?
Well, I think the first step is to recognize how crucial consistency is, because if you fully accept that, then you'll make decisions to support that as a outcome that your business must achieve. So that's number one. That's kind of a mindset or attitudinal thing. Then the next question is resourcing it. And that's a big challenge for any small business, is to resource marketing, because as we discussed, Nick, previously, marketing is a multi-skilled thing. For someone to be good at marketing, to be what's termed as a full stack marketer, they need to understand strategy to a certain degree. They need to be good at writing, design, technology in terms of web tech, social media, SEO, and the chances of finding all those skills in one person that you can hire for your small business is about 0.
Yep.
And I wish I had $1 for every time, because I could probably buy us a couple of coffees. Every time I've had a horror story from an accounting firm, they come to us and they said, look, we're just trying a different approach with our marketing. We hired a marketing coordinator and it didn't work out. And the common thread is they hire someone on a reasonable salary to drive their marketing, because this term marketing coordinator has been populated by some coaches to the accounting profession over the years. And they take about 6 to 12 months for the relationship to not work out. But it's not the person that they hire. It's not their fault, because there's a skill in knowing how to attract, recruit, screen, onboard, train, supervise. And, frankly, you can't do that. So even if you could find this mythical person, very difficult for a business to manage them well. So I think a business needs to understand, any business, but specifically here accounting businesses, what are their skills in-house? And then just look to complement them with external resources. That's, I think, a really important starting point to have that consistent cadence.
And I think that's one of the keys. And MC, I think, and we spoke about this in our first session, the first challenge that I see a lot of accounting business owners have when they put a marketing coordinator in-house is they don't understand what the strategy is, because they're running an accounting business, they're not marketers, and that's not their skill set. So when it comes to building the strategy, that's where they first fail, because the team member they have, this marketing coordinator, doesn't know what to do. Now, if you want someone at the level that you can build the strategy, that's a very senior person. So
it is. And, I wrote a paper for CANS, the Chartered Accountants. It wasn't called that when I wrote it, Institute of Chartered Accountants back then, about the difference, Nick, between a marketing director, a marketing manager, and a marketing coordinator. And a lack of clarity between marketing director is steering the ship, which is why we say with marketing, you can't abdicate your marketing. That's that, I think I can just sign a check and have that person handle it. So that's important. That's why you need to be savvy to marketing. And their marketing manager is really someone that marshals other resources. They're really great at project planning and making things happen. It's kind of like workflow, but for marketing in a way, as a marketing manager. But they understand strategy and they have a good dialogue with marketing director level. And marketing coordinator is keyboard level, get things done, do that social post, get that blog post promoted and up, get that email newsletter out. And to hire a marketing coordinator and expect them to be a marketing manager, let alone a marketing director, well, you failed before you started, really. Just the failure will be take a few months to show up.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, and that's where I see a lot of the challenges. And then the second challenge that I really see is that they do have this human being, and remembering that 80% of the accounting industry or accounting firms in the industry globally have less than 20 employees. So you've got this person coming in that is expected to do all these wonderful things, and they go, all right, we put the cost in this marketing coordinator, and like you mentioned, they should be able to manage SEO. They should be able to manage our blogs. They should be able to write the content. They should be able to design the website. They should be able to, there's a long list, which all leads back to, my personal opinion is that person lacks capacity in a significant way. So what challenges do you see with accounting firms with the capacity front in the marketing space? So obviously if they got their strategy, they've got their presence worked out, and then we talk about one of the first issues being capacity. How do you see that accountant firms deal with that?
Well, it's to understand the areas that you need capacity. You need to have capacity to create good content, and that's time consuming, and it takes a certain skill set to write good content. So that's one thing. Then you need to promote that content, which is just as crucial, because the world's best blog post that doesn't get many people knowing about it doesn't fulfill its potential. And then wrapped around both of that is, let's call it SEO, but it's really the analytics, the measurability side of marketing, to know that, okay, that blog post, was it targeting one of the phrases that we want to rank well for in Google, because that links through to our strategy? And then was it written in a way that's going to tick the boxes for Google to know what it's about? So to answer that question directly, I think most firms are not capable of producing great content in-house. Some are, don't get me wrong, some are, but most are not. And I think at the very least, most firms need to be able to have a workflow where content is created inside the firm, but then goes to someone to polish it, to SEO it, to create a great image, to put it on the blog, and then to do all the social posts. Because without all of that work on the back end, not many people will see the blog, as I said.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I had the opposite when I had my accounting and financial planning business. We wrote a blog on, I think, Who Stole My Cheese? Or there was a book that we wrote a blog post on, and it was intended for business owners. And it was a great article and it ranked really high, but they were not the type of traffic we wanted. So we were getting all this traffic, and our traffic looked absolutely brilliant. Yes. But then you go, it's traffic that is never going to get us a client. It's a review on a book that is nothing to do with our target market. So while the content that we wrote in-house, seemed to be achieving success, it didn't. And that comes back to, I suppose, that example links me back to skills. Accountants are accountants. They're not marketers. But yet as a business owner of a small business with up to, 20 odd staff, or even some of the larger firms with more than 20 staff, they need to somewhat understand marketing. So where do you really see that they do lack the skills, and how can they get around that? What's the solution to fix that?
In a word, it's education. And stepping back from that, marketing, when you and I say marketing, clearly modern marketing leans towards digital marketing, but it doesn't exclude traditional marketing, the networking, the events, getting out there. So let's say that right up front, that we're not saying to not do traditional marketing.
No, great.
It's certainly a case of and, not or, on digital versus offline marketing, to put a phrase on that. So yeah, people need to educate themselves around marketing, which is, when we started over a decade ago now, one of the first offerings that we launched was called the Modern Marketing Academy, but we now do that teaching through our Strategy Fast Track program, because there are certain basic fundamentals that if you don't understand them, you can't actually direct marketing resources in the first place. Because, for example, with that blog post earlier, the question is, if you've got someone writing a blog post for you, it's okay, which target buyer persona, which comes in the first gear of strategy, is that article targeting? Then which phrase that persona searches on, based on our research, is that going to rank well for? Like, what's the game we're playing here? It's just the difference between going out on a golf course and whacking balls all over the place and having a very specific game plan that, step by step, this is how I'm going to get the outcomes that I want.
And I think that this is so critical. I mean, Cadence, and I know running our marketing for the last 12 months, and it's not an area that I could say that I thrive in, but it is all about that consistency. It's about that cadence. It's about, having the pillars of marketing that you're driving towards, and then reviewing and analyzing the numbers around it. But I think a lot of it does come back to this third ingredient, which you talk about, which is structure. So tell me more about what you mean by structure.
Well, because marketing is considered by many in small business, not just accountants, many small businesses see marketing as a little bit of a creative pursuit, a bit of a mystery. Structure is the series of if-then situations that produce your results. So if someone says, I don't get any result, I don't get any leads from my website. So upstream from that is, okay, well, how many people are visiting your website? Okay, how many of those are coming in on the targeted pages that are about your services? How well are you ranking for phrases? So structure is understanding this leads to this, leads to this, which is why the structure that we've covered in this Facebook Live series together, Nick, of the 3 gears, is a simplification, which is necessary when you're introducing someone to a concept. It's a simplification of our full marketing machine methodology, where once you're savvy to it, it's actually quite easy. It's a bit like, when you learn accounting, there are rules, if this, then that, and marketing is no different. So that's what I mean by structure, is be clear on who you're targeting, be clear on the target words, know your rankings, know how many people are coming to your website, know how many people are ending up on your email list. And it's all a series of numbers that a marketing coordinator can serve up to you each month and say, here's our website traffic, here's our rankings, here's our list growth. And that's why we actually hold a scoreboard up to our clients and make ourselves highly accountable, because we give everyone a platform that has all of those metrics on it when we do their blogging and email newsletters and social posts. Because without that scoreboard, you don't know whether you're actually following that structure and getting that sequence of knock-on effects that, at the end of the day, the goal is to produce inbound leads where people pick up the phone or do the contact us thing on the website, and they're pre-sold on the firm and they want to get down to specifics.
Yeah, no, I agree. So with the fourth ingredient being strategy, and I know we had a whole conversation on this in our first gear of marketing. So for anyone that hasn't watched that, highly recommend you go back. It's on our Facebook page and you can watch the whole video. But for MC, anyone that missed the strategy component, can you tell us a little bit more around how does that fit into Cadence?
Sure. Well, a strategy without action is just a cool idea. So the cadence is the phrase I often use, is it's where the rubber hits the road. One of the distinctions that I like in life is you can prepare your life away. And the dividing line between preparation and action is people can feel very good about preparation, like studying, getting a degree, going to a course. It's all preparation. And action is where you're risking judgment, failure, and on the upside, that's where your results come. So without the cadence of publishing, there's a phrase that's used a lot in marketing that was borrowed from the academic circles, where the professors who want to progress their career always talk about, have done for decades, publish or perish, publish or perish. So for that, for the academics, it means let's get papers published regularly in peer-reviewed journals, and that's how they grow in professional stature and pay. So for an accounting business and any small business, it is publish or perish. So unless you're putting out content all the time and then seeing whether people actually read it, connected with it, and so on, there's no point really having that strategy. But on the flip side, there's no point doing content publishing until you have the strategy. So it's that classic situation of, again, of and, not or. Need both.
And I think, and I think that what's so important is that, and I know that this is something that you cover with your clients because I've seen it, is that initially when you're going through and doing the strategy component, there are going to be aspects that just need to be done once and then monitored and maintained. A lot of the, Google My Business and little bits and pieces that, it's really tying it up, getting on all the, the list of local businesses, making sure that you're listed as an accountant. So I know part of the strategy is initially what I call a cleanup, but then it's the cadence of what needs to be done consistently. What would be, and I know this is something we haven't spoken about too much in all three, but, what are some of the things when you look from a digital presence, where do you see accountants really not doing that well? And I'll give you one example. When I Google an accountant, or I Google, accountants Gold Coast, very few of them come up with actual having any client reviews. It's not hard to get some and then stand out. They don't have much of a presence at all. And you go, well, these things are all free and easy, and they're not really that complex, but yet I see a lot of accounting firms don't get the simple stuff right. So is that something that you teach when a client comes on board, or all these little things, which I call the housekeeping, which you should have. And once you do it, it's just a matter of, checking in on it every now and again to make sure it doesn't need refreshing. What are your thoughts on that side of it?
100% agree. The platform that I mentioned, we call it Implementer, because at the end of the day, it's all about implementation. And we call our platform Implementer because we also mentor our clients at the back of it. And in there, we've got a checklist of things to do that include all the tasks that you need to do to address getting reviews, checking for reviews, asking for reviews, checking that your Google My Business account that everyone has for free is actually fully completed. Google will favor those properties that's the word that they use, those things online that are complete. And a lot of people, you go on their Google My Business, they haven't filled out their business hours. There's no photos of the business and the description's not even filled out. So that's a black mark against your name. So every business out there actually has dozens and dozens of black marks that they don't know about against their name from a digital marketing perspective, from what Google perceives, that are very readily, as you say, it's just like a cleanup that can be done. One example is when a website goes live, usually the analogy I use is when you get a brand new website, it's like getting a brand new house in a new estate where, let's say when you first get it, there may be, depending where you live in the world, there might be a lawn, there might be the start of a garden, but it's not done. It's just the start. And your SEO, how well your website performs in rankings, is the same. And when you search in Google, you'll see they haven't even done yet the titles for their homepage. So rather than say such and such accountants for whatever their target market is, so that in the Google search results, before anyone even clicks on it, it tells a story. It'll just say home. And that's super remiss to not have what they call on-page SEO done. But you know what? Someone following instructions can fix that in about 5-10 minutes flat. And once it's fixed, it's fixed. So yeah, there's a whole range of things. On the reviews, a quick example that comes to mind, Nick, there's a firm we were guiding in North Sydney, and we're doing their blogging, they're ranking really well, but they weren't showing up in the local pack. So everyone would have searched on their phone. When you're out and about, you're searching for something and there's the map at the top. So it's sometimes called the snack pack, the local pack. And they said, we want to get up there. And you know what it was? They had a few Google reviews, but at the time, the magic number of reviews they needed in Google was 5. And they got a couple more reviews, bam, they were in there within a week up the top because they were ranking well otherwise, but they just weren't showing up at the top. So Google sees that clearly as a signal of trust and quality if you've got those reviews.
Yeah, so there's all these little things. So to sum up then, the relationship between capacity, skills, the structure and the strategy, what all those ingredients, what is the relationship between them all?
Yeah, okay. So if everyone could just imagine a Venn diagram here where you've got to have the capacity, we talked about that. You've You've got to have the capacity. But so let's say you've got someone sitting on a chair and you go, yeah, we've got 40 hours a week. We've got capacity. But capacity plus skills is what gives capability. So capacity plus skills gives you capability. So capability is wonderful because that's potential, but it's still just potential. So then below, imagine a couple more circles where you've got structure and strategy. Those two things give a plan. So you got structure and strategy, you've got a plan. And when you put together capability and a plan, that's what gives action. That's what gives you the result. So if any one of those four ingredients of capacity, skills, structure, or strategy is missing, kind of like one leg of a table is missing, they all need to be in place.
Excellent. Now, I know you've got probably thousands and thousands of examples, but do you have a practical example of a client that you've worked with, particularly around this cadence that we're talking about today, where they didn't have much cadence when they came to you and looked for that advice and guidance, and then what you implemented to help them really achieve that?
Well, one example comes to mind is a firm in Brisbane, SRJ Walker Wayland, and they came to us a few years ago.
Wonderful client of ours as well.
Very switched on.
Great
man,
firm,
oh man.
Yeah, great business.
And are they good at recruiting? I think last time I spoke to Jason Croston there, a third or more of their staff were under the age of 25 because they've got a very, very cool cadetship program where they're circuit breaking the pre-indoctrination that happens of typical accountants and taking people straight out of high school into the exciting profession that is the advisory aspects. And frankly, every aspect of accounting is very cool. It's a great way to help people. Anyway, so Jason came to us after they'd had a marketing coordinator who was working with them for a couple of years. And that person moved on in their life, moved to a different country. So it was an amicable parting. And Jason thought, how can I resource this better? And so instead of one person in-house who was trying to be a jack of all trades, trying to be good at writing, good at design, good at tech, like we said before, he came to us because he liked the idea that with us at Paradox, you get a slice of a marketing team. You know, you're not hanging your hat on one person. We've got copywriters, designers, SEO, tech in the one team, and you get a slice of that. And the testimonial, the feedback that Jason gave that I really like, because it's why we exist, is he was getting twice the output of content with our services, with a multi-person team, for half the cost that he was getting with a whole person in-house. And that's not to criticize that person that was in-house. He was doing the best he could, but he's just one person. So, you know, to have that mixture of a multi-skilled team done in a cost-effective way that can cost less than putting someone on a seat. But, you know, the ideal is if you've already got capacity in-house, is just complement their skills. Get them to do certain things and get us to do the things that you just don't have the skills for.
Yeah, so if someone wants to see more examples like that, is there any resources that they can go and read or watch or have a look at?
Yeah, there's plenty. By the way, something that people can Google is the difference between a marketing director and marketing manager, or Google the difference between a marketing manager and a marketing coordinator. And you'll actually find a blog post that I've written on that. And you can download that paper that I've written about those three different levels, because that will allow you to put together a position description before you're looking to recruit resources, whether they're in-house or outsourced anyway. But a link that will help people today, Nick, is if you type in practiceparadox.com.au/cadence, CADENCE, that'll go to a blog post where we talk about taking the mystery out of digital marketing and also a bit of the BS out of digital marketing. And it's a blog post that's been around a couple of years now, but it's got, because the principles of what we teach are timeless. And on that blog post, what you'll see is a video of a webinar that we ran through the full marketing machine model beyond the 3 gears that we've covered in this series.
Excellent. So I'll put the link in down in the comments for anyone to be able to link through to that. So we've covered off the third gear of digital marketing being cadence. So we've now covered a few different areas. We've obviously covered strategy in the first Facebook Live we did. We've now covered presence in the second one we did last week. And now we've obviously covered the third one being cadence and getting that in place. So do you want to give us a quick recap on the 3 digital gears and their importance?
Sure. Overall, the first thing to understand is that concept of don't put the cart before the horse, that sequence matters. That is why we've developed this model. Someone, Nick, when they went through the first module of our strategy fast track, they went, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I now understand that framework, because we were about to run off and do a website and spend thousands of dollars on a good website, but we would have been actually running blind. So that strategy, what I would say to you is if you're about to do a website, stop. If you're about to do a rebrand, stop. If you're about to get big into, we're going to be bloggers and I'm going to build my authority and do social and video, stop and get that strategy framework in place first and foremost, because without that, you really are just random. Then that presence part is that it's really important to understand that people make up their minds on a brand. We all do it within a nanosecond. Malcolm Gladwell, I mentioned his book briefly when we spoke about this. He's got a great book, many great books, one called Blink, about how the mind, the brain, makes decisions very, very quickly and intuitively with a part of the brain that does not even have a verbal function. So your design, your branding, what they instantly see on your website, if they click through to social media, all of that adds up to them being impressed from the get-go. One analogy that comes to mind years ago in the early 1990s, showing my age there, when I was running the consult. When I was a toddler, I was running the consulting division for a marketing company called the Results Corporation, based in Brisbane, but we were operating nationally. And one of my clients had an upmarket menswear store in a financial precinct right at the heart of the CBD in Brisbane. He had a poster on the wall that, because he sold the nice suits, etc., it said, good grooming never got, and this is sexist wording back in those days, good grooming never got a man into the boardroom, but poor grooming's kept plenty men out. So I thought, how do you think about that? What are you talking about? And they're basically saying, if you look like a scruff, you're really not helping your chances. And I think the average branding of the average accounting firm is the equivalent of a cheap, crumpled suit. So what a waste to really just ruin your opportunity to make that first impression. So your presence is really important. Invest in that. Don't go looking for a cookie cutter, cheap website and cheap logo. Invest that money, because you can results-wise amortize that over so many years of value.
It won't take long to get more clients, will it? Just innovating that one quickly. I mean, the cost of what we're talking about is a couple of clients at most if you do it right.
Oh, yeah. And, that lack of a value proposition that we spoke about previously in another session, without a value proposition, you're kind of I'll continue that analogy going. Imagine if a salesperson came to you one day and he or she, they look great, looked $1 million, but then just nonsense and drivel came out of their mouth. They wouldn't last too long in front of you. And your website without a strong value proposition, which is the most succinct articulation, it's like a mini pitch. It's a super quick version of why someone should choose you and what you're doing for whom. Doesn't matter how pretty your website is, even though design's important. If people do marketing for pretty pictures, is what I call it. There's some agencies out there. We pick up a lot of clients that have been to an agency and they've had their branding done, had their website done, gotten no results. They've gone back to the agency and the agency's gone, oh, you've got a great looking website. They're just off with the fairies. And marketing for pretty pictures, what I call that. But even though that's important, it's a stepping stone. And then, just consistently produce great content, so that so-called monthly newsletter that people mention on their website, I always like to then do a bit of snooping and see if the monthly newsletter has been happening monthly or whether it's been happening once or twice a year.
Excellent. So, MC, I've really enjoyed this series. So we've obviously covered the 3 gears of digital marketing. For anyone that hasn't watched all 3, highly recommend you do. The first one covered off strategy. The second one covered off presence. And then today we've gone into cadence and why it's so important. MC, I've really enjoyed these. I've learned a lot. There's been huge value. We've got lots of positive comments from people that have been watching those. So I'd like to thank you for your time during these. And if anyone wants to learn more, there, obviously put the link in the comments box. But for anyone that's listening to this and may not be actually able to jump into the comments and onto Facebook, what's the easiest way for anyone to reach out and find you and learn more about how you can help them with all 3 of those components of the digital marketing framework?
I'll mention our website and my email address. So website, practiceparadox.com.au. And my email is just my initials, MC at practiceparadox.com.au. Drop me a line. We could have a Zoom meeting and have a chat. And we've got a very, not surprisingly, a structured evaluation process that we step people through to just work out what are their gaps, their current gaps in their marketing, and how they could be bridged.
Awesome. MC, as always, thank you, and look forward to continuing to chat to you again in the near future.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Nick, and look forward to having further chats down the track.
Cheers. Thanks, MC.
Bye.